Hello everyone, welcome to msHOWTO and Traefik webinar series, part 1. If you have watched before the other series, I think you are expecting Patricia. I am sorry you had to see this face, but today we have a very hot topic and two valuable Traefik ambassadors with me. And I don't want to talk very much, and I will pass the mic to Jakub. And Jakub Bajek, welcome.
Hello everyone, here is Jakub Hayek. Hopefully my internet connection will be stable because I'm still receiving the notification that is unstable. So yeah, do you want me to, should we go in a roundtable and introduce ourselves?
I think we could do it when we get to the introduction slides, because then we can each walk through each introduction slide. How's that sound?
Okay.
So we are today we are going to talk about the migration stuff, and we have the Brian Christner with us. Maybe you know him as a Docker captain. So this time I'll pass the mic to Brian.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. And let me just share my slides now so we can get started. How's that sound? All right. Present. Good. All right, we are going to discuss migrating Traefik 1.7 to 2.x. And the agenda for today is we're going to introduce ourselves, obviously, myself, Jakub, and Mert, and then we'll discuss, what's really the differences between Traefik 1.7, 2.x. We'll show you some various migration plans, and of course, we'll jump right into a demo. And at the last, we'll have a Q&A session where we'll cover some different questions covering the different migrations and questions you have regarding how and why should I migrate. Well, let's get started. My name is Brian Christner. I am co-founder of 56k.cloud, and I'm also doing SRE work. My background is in containers, cloud, and engineering. And yeah, I am doing a lot of work around Amazon, containers, ECS, Docker Swarm, Kubernetes. It's really very diverse. And of course, I'm also a passionate mountain biker, and so is everyone else on this call, actually. So everybody is some sort of cyclist. I'm also the host of the Bike.io podcast, and I am a Docker captain and Traefik ambassador. I'll hand it over to Mert.
Okay, I am Mert Yeter. I am from Turkey, Istanbul, and I have 15 years of professional software development experience. And I am a software section at the community msHOWTO. And also I am an active member of the Cloud family, another community. I am also a Traefik ambassador. As you can see, I like cycling. I think is a requirement for being a Traefik ambassador. It looks like so. So I'll pass again to Jakub.
Thank you, Mert. So hello again, my name is Jakub Hayek. I'm working in the Commentary. That is actually my company. I founded a couple of years ago. I have a technical background working like a old-fashioned sysadmin team leader. I delivered a couple of projects working for different companies. Currently, I'm focused on specializing in containers, everything what is around containers, cluster solutions like Swarm, Kubernetes, and other technologies that can support all these things together. One of the very important things in our what we are doing in Commentary is everything around Elastic Stack, because we did a lot of work around the tools. We developed a few applications, custom applications. So we analyzed hundreds, thousands of logs from different services. And besides of this, I'm Traefik ambassador also. So we use Traefik in all of our projects. And personally, I'm an amateur sportsman. I love to ride on mountain bike, as well on the snowboard, and I practice boxing. That emoticons should express that. And I'm a I'm also father of my son, who is taking a lot of attention from my side right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Jakob and Mert. All right, Traefik 1.7. So before we can go forward, we always have to look back. So we need a little background as far as what is Traefik. So we're trying to get everyone on the same page to understand where we are. All right, so a very high level diagram, and this is coming right from the Traefik documentation. So on the left-hand side, we have our incoming requests and they hit the Traefik router. And then they're either routed to a service or a backend or some sort of backend that's happening. And then if we expand on this slightly, you can see this is how the magic happens between the front end, so where the request is coming in, and here's the entry point. So this is where we're defining, you know, where, for example, the port 80 is being mapped to. So port 80 or port 443 is in map to a front end, and a front end can be a domain names, for example, api.domain.com. And this front end is in map to the back end. And this allows us to then write configuration files to make this work. So we can essentially write each component. So an entry point, a front end, and a back end. And we define this with either labels or TOML files in 1.7. Now I need to go there. And there's a brilliant blog post by Traefik, and they actually said front ends and back ends are dead. Long live routers, middlewares, and services. And basically what they're saying is in 2.0, everything's changing. Not quite that extreme, but yes, there are some changes. Now we're looking at, okay, now we still have entry points, our providers and connection information, and this is all static. So this means we can only change this at startup time of Traefik. Now dynamic, this is everything on this side. You can see it's routers, for example, services, middlewares, and certificates. Now it's slightly bit different terminology. So I created a small little table to make the mapping understandable. So entry point is still an entry point. A provider is still a provider, but new now in 2.x, a front end is now a router. A feature is a middleware, and a back end is now a service. And it's important to understand how this works because this also affects how we write our Docker Compose files, for example. And I'm using Docker Compose here. So on the left-hand side, we see Docker Compose, and I have a 1.7 Traefik Compose file. And I'm using this demo application from another Docker captain, Mike. And we're connecting to the inbound network. And down here, you can see the label, Traefik.frontend rule host. And this is cats.localhost. So I'm just making up a local domain called cats.localhost. It's mapping to port 5000 of the container, and it's using the inbound network connection that we have defined here. So this is the 1.7 way to do it. And in 2.0, you can actually see that, okay, we're still using the same image, same network, but where it changes is down in the labels. So from front end is now a router. So you can see router, cat rule, still have cats.localhost. We're then tying this router to the service. If you remember, if we go back here, so the service is the backend. And then we have a load balancer, which tells us which port the actual application is running on and how that application is actually communicating. So we're going to use the inbound network. Everyone with us so far? All right. So migration plans. That was just a high level of what we're trying to achieve with 1.7 to migrating to 2.0. And now we're going to go with the migration plans, and we need to understand the different possibilities. There's several different possibilities, but we just drew up a couple to give you an idea. The first one is a parallel deployment. And this really depends on how many applications or containers you have running in your environment. For example, when I go to Traefik 2.0, I can actually deploy a second Traefik server running 2.0. I can then relabel these containers and then slowly start porting them over to the Traefik 2.0 server. So that's one option. I think that's quite an easy way to do it. I see some, oops. I can't get to the chat. Can someone tell me what the chat is? All right, so that's one way to do it. So we can see, okay, now I'm migrating the container, and two things. I'm deploying a new Traefik server, and I'm also deploying a Traefik container with the new labels. So both things have to happen. But the advantage of this particular migration is you're always up, basically. So you have two instances, you roll it over, and then you probably have a DNS change up in the cloud rolling this container to this particular container. That's a parallel deployment. The other deployment, which we believe we discussed earlier, that is probably the most common, is the Big Bang. And that is really, we have a 1.7 server, and we say, hey, we're just going to upgrade it to 2.0. We're going to relabel everything, and we're going to be up and running. And to be honest, that's what we're seeing mostly, is people just doing one big upgrade. But if you're going to do such an upgrade, you have to make some plans, right? So you have to plan for downtime because you need to upgrade Traefik. You have to prepare your containers to relabel them for 2.x. You can do this all ahead of time. So if you have a proper test environment, you can actually deploy these containers into a test environment with the new labels with 2.0 and get it all ready. So it should minimize your downtime. But I would recommend the Big Bang if you only have a small set of containers. If you have a large number of containers, I would really recommend the parallel deployment, because this allows you to slowly, move things over, versus when you do the Big Bang, you have to have everything ready. You can't be halfway ready. It really has to be 100% to go from 1.7 to 2.x. Now, one of the tools available within the migration plan is a tool by containerize, which is the Traefik migration tool. And this is just part of the repo. And what it does, it allows you to point this tool at your Traefik directory, and it takes either your ingress to Traefik. It migrates your Acme JSON from Traefik 1.7 to 2.0. And it also migrates your TOML file, so your Traefik TOML file for you. So it takes your static TOML file and it rewrites it. So it tells you, okay, your logging, your entry points, all these things, and it rewrites it from the 1.7 version to 2.0. That is the different options available within Traefik for migration. That's also how we plan on doing this in the demo. So if there's any questions, let me just take a pause for a second and see if we have any questions. Thanks for attending. Oh, great. So that's Patricia. So let's jump out of this quickly. And let me grab into my screen. Everyone can see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. All right. Let me get into my directory and get everything ready. So in this directory, I have the repo available, which we'll share with you after. And essentially we have the Docker compose file, which is 1.7. And this is actually running Traefik 1.7 Alpine. We're mounting the working directory, the Traefik TOML, into the Traefik container. And then we're publishing the ports 80, 443, 80, 80. And this is a Docker compose file. This is for Docker Swarm. Additionally, we have an application we're going to deploy on top of this 1.7 configuration. And that is 1.7. And in here, oops, let me clean this up a little bit. There we go. So as we saw in the presentation, you saw it's the Mike's cat application. We're using the Traefik network. And down here, it's the labels that we're going to pass to Traefik. So Traefik knows how to route this. So I'm going to start this up. And Docker stack deploy -c Docker compose. I'm cheating with my autocomplete, so bear with me. And Traefik. There we go. I am now starting up my server. And now I see a bunch of questions popping through. All right, cool. Cool. So we have Docker service ls, And we have one Traefik instance running. So let's pull up, oops, 0.08080. And there we go. So Traefik is up and running. It has no backends, no front ends running because we don't have anything running, which is a good thing. So Traefik itself is running. Our dashboard is running. Health shouldn't see anything quite yet because nothing is being routed through this. Next step, I'm going to actually deploy our cat application. Docker stack deploy -c cats 1.7. So this is now deploying the 1.7 cats onto Docker Swarm onto Traefik. Now, if I go back to my providers, you can see now I have 3 instances of my cat application running. The host name is cats.localhost, and you can see the front end is mapped to the back end. This should be fairly standard for everyone that's running in 1.7 currently. Now, just to see what my application is doing, it's a random cat generator. I mean, you can't get better than that. And you see, every time I refresh, you can see it's routing to a different container, and it gives me a different GIF. So it's quite cool, right? All right, so we've accomplished deploying 1.7. Now, the whole premise of this presentation is to actually show you how to migrate from 1.7 to 2.x. And preparation is key here. So I've already rewritten the cats.yaml file and the Traefik compose file. Let's quickly take a look. And I'm actually going to shut down Docker stack rm, Traefik, and cats. So I'm going to delete both the cat stack and the Traefik stack. So there's nothing running anymore. Docker stack ls, and we are not running anything anymore. Now let's quickly take a look at version 2 of the compose file. And you see right away, we've upgraded Traefik to 2.2. And now something new here is we're mounting a configuration file in a new directory. And the reason being, which I'll show you in a moment, is the migration tool actually creates the new static file in this directory. So you can see new Traefik YAML and Traefik YAML. So it actually, this migration tool actually rewrites it as TOML or YAML. And since we're going to upgrade, we might as well change it to the newer format as well. The ports remain the same, the deploy mechanism stays the same, and we're still using the same networks. All right, let's look at the cat application now. Oops, 2. All right, so here's the cat application, same as we saw before. I bumped the version as well because, you know, if we're doing big bang, we might as well upgrade everything, you know, super dangerous. We're using the Traefik network, and we're also using the labels right here. So you can see the HTTP routers is going to cat's localhost, cat app service. The router is actually mapping to the service cat app. And you can see that's the name of the application here. We're using port 5000 because that's what the container, that's what the cat's application is exposing. We're using the Traefik network. And I've added a couple more in here in case you want to enable some middlewares later on. All right, so that is what we do first. And now what we're going to do is we're going to run this migration tool. So this migration tool runs wherever you're running Traefik and wherever your Traefik TOML file lives. So this command here, oops, docker run -v, so we're the present working directory, and it's mounting into this migration tool. Actually, this is the wrong tool. This is one I'm trying to fix because I found an error in it. There we go. Same thing, just different image. Oops. There we go. Containerize Traefik migration tool. And then you have to tell it exactly what you want to do. So before we actually start, let's do this quickly. Run, and we're just going to run it without a command to see what the tool actually responds back with. And it responds back with a help. And you can see the available commands is Acme. So I can actually migrate Acme from version 1 to version 2. There's help, which is this screen. Ingress, if you want to migrate your ingress routes. and static. For this demo, we're just going to migrate static from version 1, version 2. All right, so let me, oops. There we go. Oops, that's the wrong one again. I'm cheating here because it's such a long command. I don't feel like typing. Don't blame me. All right, so we're using the image directly from Docker Hub, containers, Traefik migration tool, static. So we're passing the static command to it. We only want to update the static configuration. And then -i tells us the input directory. So since we're mounting it, the present working directory, or the, into /data of the container, the input would be /data the container /Traefik toml. Now I opened a pull request. I actually fixed this so you don't have to type all these things. You just type static and it does it automatically. So hopefully Traefik team approves that pull request. Then -d is the output. So data static. So if I run that, and there we go. And you can see it'll tell you certain things like the Docker local host in my toml file is defined, but I'll have to set it manually in 2.2 because some things don't port over. Now in my directory, you see there's a static directory. I can go into the static directory, and now I can see I have 2 new files. I have a new Traefik toml and a new Traefik YAML. And this is where it gets interesting because there's this little bug, and I've opened up a pull request for this as well. Essentially what happens is the new Traefik YAML file is this. So it takes everything from our Traefik toml, so our entry point, our provider, so we're using Docker, exposed by default, swarm mode. This is enabling the dashboard, and we want log level to be debug. Now this up here, you have to delete global, because if you leave that in there, Traefik won't start. So I've also opened a pull request to, if it's empty, to not display it in the file. So this should be resolved here shortly as well. All right. So we have our new static files here. And now we are going to start Docker, or Traefik 2.2. So Docker stack deploy -c Docker compose. So it's now creating the network traffic, creating the service traffic, and let's just check to make sure that started now. All right, brilliant. We are cooking with gas. That's always a good thing. That's still from the previous. If I refresh here, you can now see we have the 2.2 dashboard. Yay. All right. Step 1 complete. We were able to upgrade Traefik. So essentially we upgraded Traefik toml file to the 2.2 version format, and we started up Traefik right away. So it's up and running. But now we need our application to start as well. So let's start our new Cat2 app. If you remember, has the new format. So Docker stack deploy -c cats, and we're going to do 2.x instead. There you go. And let's just make sure it's up and running. Brilliant. So we have 3 copies of our Cats app, and the Traefik instance is also running. So let's head back over to the dashboard. And now the dashboard is updated because we're running 2.x, so we get to take advantage of all the cool features. If I go into routers, you can now see I have my Cats app and the service. If I click on here, you can see more details. So I don't have TLS enabled. I don't have any middlewares. It's just a basic service running, but it is up and running. It's healthy. It's happy. Now let's check our application. And there you go. So I've also upgraded the app. So now it's a whale app because, it's a Docker thing. But yeah, so you can see it's still routing. It's still doing everything as advertised. And that is the end of the demo. So just to recap, we took a 1.7 Traefik, 1.7 application. We upgraded Traefik to 2.2. we ran the migration script, which actually rewrote the Traefik.toml into a YAML file in the 2.2 format. We started Traefik up again with 2.2, and we deployed our new app that has a new label format to 2.2. So we were able to successfully migrate from 1.7 to 2.2. And with that, I'm going to hand it over back to Jakob and Mert to help me with some questions.
Okay. Let me start. When I first start my professional career, I have been told that if something runs smoothly, do not touch it. So it looks like a very easy to upgrade, but I think there may be some difficulties or challenges while upgrading in a huge production. So why should I upgrade to version 2?
That's actually a great question. I mean, well, 1.7 is a very stable product, but if you want to take advantage of all the 2.x features, you have to migrate. I mean, all the new features will only be developed on 2.2, and 1.7 will continually be maintained and bug fix, etc. But we really want to focus on, you know, taking advantage of these new features and being able to configure middlewares. And going to this new format, it also prepares us to go to Kubernetes or different orchestrators as well. So yeah, it's all around a good thing to go to 2.x Traefik.
Okay, thank you. Jakob?
Yeah, and you definitely can use what just Brian said, the new features which are already developed in Traefik 2.0. So I strongly recommend to migrate it, because we use, for example, Kubernetes CRD that is already developed in that provided in version 2, and it works perfectly. So, and you have, of course, beautiful dashboard, which is very, of course, it's not for the very important thing, but you can easily see how your applications are defined, and it's human readable for the person who are not technical. And from my perspective, when you show this kind of dashboards to your C-level management, to your C-level guys who are owners of the company, it looks brilliant. So they can see that how your system is designed. So that's my personal experience with upgrading. Why to upgrade to the version 2? And of course, the most important thing, we don't know how long version 2 will be supported. So it's always good. It's always good to be up to date, even from the security reason, and also from the support to version 7, to version 1.7.
Okay, I like the dark theme, by the way. Can you show us, right?
Can you repeat
the
that?
dark
Sorry?
mode?
Dark
Can
mode.
you
Oh,
show us the dark mode?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's worth the upgrade right there. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course you have a TCP service, and because we are playing with Elastic Stack, and we use a lot of Logstash instances in our environment, and Logstash provider. Actually, this is the only one place when we use TCP services, and Logstash provide the Lumberjack, that is TCP protocol. It's not HTTP, so it's perfect place to use that kind of a service, which is already available in the version 2. It's not available in the version 1.
Yep. So version 2 supports both TCP as well as UDP.
Correct.
Yep. I see a question in the chat from Craig Rodriguez. For people who deployed Traefik 1.7 in a Kubernetes environment with a Helm chart, what would the steps be in the migration?
Okay.
So, I mean, there's obviously, it depends how you've configured Traefik in the Helm chart, I guess. There should be already Helm charts with 2.x. The biggest thing is you're going to have to change how all your applications are. Unfortunately, Kevin dropped off, but you have to relabel your applications to take advantage of how 2.x handles, or how your application can communicate to the Traefik 2.x. So it's really along these lines. We have another question here. So, hi, we are currently running Traefik 1.7 on Swarm cluster, but we'll be migrating to 2.x on the K8s cluster. Besides the obvious configuration differences between Swarm and K8s, is there anything in particular we should be aware of? For instance, we currently have our certificate in Acme JSON file, but there is a better recommended way for K8s. And could the 1.7 2.x migration be problematic regarding certificates? I mean, this is a lot of migrations in one. I don't know. I mean, sorry, go ahead. Who's going to answer that?
In one. Yeah, the same I wanted to say, Brian. So a lot of things that you want to like to do in one step, because you are changing the main ingress controller to version 2, and you are changing the crucial part of your environment, that is Kubernetes. So it looks very complex from my perspective. And if I were you, I would definitely split that migration plan in few phases. And because there are a lot of things which can happen. So first, I will, let's say, migrate to Traefik version 2 on Swarm, and then move to the Kubernetes, because that will be the case. And you are keeping files in the Acme JSON, keeping in certificates in Acme JSON. So yeah, in version 1, you had also console. We used a lot of a console, and to keeping the files, to keeping the certificates in console to have a high availability for Traefik instances. Currently, you can still use the same feature like a file to keep your certificates even on Kubernetes. It doesn't matter. Yeah, so it will be still the same feature. But definitely, first of all, I will split the migration for a few phases. First Traefik, then orchestrator, because too many things in one migration plan.
And just coming back to the migration, so that migration tool also does Acme migrations.
Yeah.
So it does rewrite it to the 2.x format, and it prepares it for 2x. And one of the advantages of going 2.x is you're labeling all the containers already in a very Kubernetes type of fashion. So this upgrade actually prepares you for Kubernetes migration anyway. So just by going to 2.x, you're already you're working your way towards a Kubernetes deployment.
Yeah, my next session will be, I will try to show Kubernetes, actually K3s and Traefik 2.2, yeah, 2.0. And I can show more advanced examples with a canary deployment, and then you can see how my files and my configuration is prepared for Kubernetes and Traefik 2.0.
All right, we got a thumbs up. Quit while we're ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, I have another question.
Sure.
What are the challenges I may face while upgrading, except for the issues you have showed us?
I mean, the challenges is really the planning, and it really depends. It's very dependent upon your environment, your deployment, and you just have to prepare for it. So if you have a small deployment with a couple of containers, obviously it's a much different deployment compared to a few hundred. And you'll have to choose the different migration plan accordingly. So if it's a big deployment, I'd recommend having parallel deployments of 1.7, 2.x, so you can slowly roll over containers to the other version. That being said, to remove a lot of the headaches is to really have a test environment. Really test this beforehand, understand the changes, understand, how it's going to work, migrating as well as relabeling your containers, because I found a lot of the challenge is really around the labels, around the application level. So really getting the right labels, figuring out the rewrites, etc. That's where you can really focus your effort, is perfecting that before the migration in a test environment. And then once you're ready, you can start migrating to production. Do you have anything to add to that, Jakob?
Yeah, the most biggest challenge from my side when we were upgrading, it was always let's encrypt, and especially if you work on the test environment, if you have any staging environment, that because of course, if you prepare your files correctly and you don't have any mistakes, it's all about the syntax and changing from the front end to the new structure, everything should be fine. But in case of any problems, you can be blocked by let's encrypt if you send too many bad requests to them. So I definitely recommend you to use a staging environment. You can have in version 2, probably in version 1 also, you can have a few Acme providers. So you can use a staging and production environment for receiving, issuing certificates. So that's my recommendation, to use a staging environment for Let's Encrypt to issue the certificates. If you, of course, using Let's Encrypt from like a built-in feature in Traefik. And I think that's all.
We have another question. And this one is around Traefik EE. So essentially, I have a significant deployment in 1.7. Is there an option to stay on 1.7, but as the EE paid version rather than upgrade? Hey, you know, when you upgrade to EE, all things become easier. I'm just looking on the product website quickly to see if 1.7 is supported in EE. I don't know if EE is directly to 2.0 or not. Maybe Patricia, can you help us there with that?
Yes, hang tight.
All right, so Patricia is looking that up for us. Thanks, Dara, for the question. We'll come right back to you. All right, Brandon has a question. With regards to going from K8's ingress to CRDs, can you discuss the difference for TLS management, TLS options, TLS stores? Currently, I'm just using TLS and standard K8's ingress to manage both Let's Encrypt and local certificates and have had trouble translating that to 2.x. Let me just, TLS management, currently I'm using TLS and standard K8. Jakob, you have some insight to this?
Yeah, so let me just read the question once again. Just using the lesson. So we, in our test environment, in lab environment, we use Kubernetes K3s and Traefik running with CRD. And we played a lot with Let's Encrypt. Actually, I played a lot with Let's Encrypt, issuing certificates. And even with a cert manager to provide high availability, because by default, Traefik keeps their certificates in a file, and you don't have a high availability because you have just one instance up and running. So we migrated to cert manager, and cert manager use secrets built in the Kubernetes. But I don't actually, I'm just using those. Yeah, you shouldn't have any problems with migrating certificates. Just to using what I will recommend, just test it on the staging environment in order to avoid being blocked by Let's Encrypt servers. I don't know if I answered your question.
All right. And the next question was by Craig Rodriguez. For a future meetup, can you give a demo of upgrading from Traefik 1.7, Let's Encrypt Kubernetes to Traefik 2x plus Let's Encrypt and Kubernetes? And I mentioned that, Jakob, you'll be covering some of this in the K3's meetup we're going to have next. Not regarding the upgrading, but more how it's deployed with Kubernetes, et cetera. So that might answer some of your questions.
Absolutely. In my presentation, in my live demo, I have everything prepared for K3s and for Traefik 2.x with CRD. And we will deploy, again, a very simple application stack with a Traefik, Nginx, and a backend, which is Node.js. Then we'll go with a canary deployment, trying to use the built-in feature in Traefik. So this is actually what I'm going to prepare for the next session. I don't remember where exactly it is, but I will try to add more maybe a few slides, few comments in regards you have just asked. Trying to cover migration on Kubernetes.
Any other questions?
Okay.
So Brian, do you have the information? When will the version 1 support end?
When will version 1.7 end? Our understanding is it's not going to end anytime soon. There's still going to be bug fixes and some features ported back to 1.7, but the main development focus is really on 2.x.
Okay, thank you.
This is Patricia here. I just want to say that I'm validating our thoughts around the question for 1.7 to be supported on EE rather than to upgrade. So I'm not going to answer that right now until I get validation, hopefully before we wrap. And then I see that there's a request for a meetup regarding Traefik 1.7, Let's Encrypt in Kubernetes, to Traefik 2.x, Let's Encrypt in Kubernetes as well. And I just wanted to say this is a great time to let Jakob, Mert, and Brian know any other additional subjects you might want them to present on if there are any. So, and I couldn't let the guys get all the talking, so there.
Thank you, Patricia. So, Jakob, do you have any words before we finish?
No, I think we covered many things. Brian gave a great demo and presented the basic features, the crucial features of Traefik, and the immigration plan is pretty straightforward. It always depends how large is your environment and how mission critical is your application, because based on that information, you can create a plan. And it's always good to test on the staging environment, that migration plan. Unfortunately, there is no any right scenario to do it in that way, because our environments are complex and are different from the others. So it's difficult to give you a right answers, but we can inspire you. And I think it was a very inspirational what Brian presented, how to play with migration and moving to the latest version, which we strongly recommend to do that.
And I'm dropping both the demonstration code as well as the migration tool GitHub repository into the chat so everyone can get access to it. And this will be also put into the slides later on and shared with everyone.
And if I may actually pop in and say that what we'll do, if this is okay with my colleagues, my friends here, is we'll respond to these questions in a GitHub gist, and we'll put it in the YouTube description. And then also when I send the recording out to everybody, this will be in the newsletter or within that copy. So, and I think there's another question or two, so I will disappear again. Ooh.
Yeah, the question is about regarding KEAS, Kubernetes and Cert Manager. Is it still possible to run HA traffic, high available traffic with certs coming from secrets created by Cert Manager like it works with 1.7? So I tested the configuration with Kubernetes, Cert Manager, and Traffic 2.0, and you can have a HA, high available traffic, multiple instances of traffic connected to the Cert Manager, to the secrets generated by Cert Manager, and it works perfectly. So there were no any problems with this.
Yeah, I think the important thing is setting up traffic as HA is what resolves this. Yep.
Yeah. So definitely, if you have more instances of traffic, definitely you're providing HA. But again, traffic starts immediately. So again, it still depends on your how mission critical some applications. And sometimes I feel personally that we like engineers trying to create very complex environment just to trying to protect for each edge case. And sometimes it's better to have a very simple configuration and very human friendly rather than complicated by adding extra layers. For example, the example of console was very in 1.7. It worked in our environment, but I have spoken with a few colleagues from containers and they told me that people are complaining about it. That's why console provider has been removed in the version 2. And I set it up correctly, but maybe it was a it corrected my side, but many people complained, and it was a complex environment. Many services, HA, quorum for a console because you have to keep quorum for a console. So another level to another service that should be maintained and take care by you. So my suggestion is always to keep environments as simple as is possible. It's easier to maintain.
And Traefik EE does support this as well. So that's a native feature within EE to support HA and the certificates across HA.
Absolutely. So paid version is also available.
Great.
Okay. Before we finish, I want to thank you, Jakub, being a co-host, because this is my first Traefik meetup, and I am very excited to be here. And many thanks to Brian. That's a great demo. I thought that the migration stuff will be painful, but as I've seen, it's very easy. So thank you both, and thank you, Patricia, for having us today.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
Pleasure.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
It's a pleasure for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you in our next episode.
Bye, everyone.